Oh, shoot. Wrong button.
I hate when that happens.
I know. Okay. So, welcome to DojoChat. I am Sensei Mish. I have Sifu Mike Mather with me today. Right before we were going on, he was showing me some stuff in the background. Specifically, we were talking about the Grinch. So, for those of you guys who don't know who the live Grinch is, didn't you go viral on some video a couple years ago on your bike?
Yeah, the Grinch is just like I said. He's hey, what are we, PG or are we PG-13 or what's going on with
Well,
that?
even though I have over 1,000 subscribers, I don't have enough watch hours. So I really don't care if you drop
So
an F-bomb, we'll
it,
call it an accident. So there's no reason I'm not monetized, so they can't demonetize me.
I try not to throw any F-bombs, but the Grinch is the international asshole of the holidays. Period.
Yeah.
Like he likes to screw up Christmas if he can, but then every once in a while he kicks the fuzzy bunny's ass around and he screws up that holiday too. So Easter's on the menu. I mean, you never know what he might do for the fourth because when it comes to blowing shit up, I mean that's right up his alley. So you just don't know. Um, the Grinch. I've been doing the Grinch for a long time. Uh, what did I start the Grinch? I started doing the Grinch about maybe 6, 7 years ago, something, I don't know. But so I did when I first did it on my bike. I rented a costume, and the thing was kind of cheesy. I kind of hated it. I had to. There's no way I was going to not ride and try to go down the road. So I had this rubber mask on, and so my wife had these little rubber bands to use for hair, and I'll use them for my beard. When my beard grows out, I put the skull beads in it. But
Yeah.
I rubber band tied the eyes wider in the rubber mask so I could see because it was like looking through a peephole. And
Yeah.
I'm thunder down the road on my motorcycle, and so it was a bitch. So then I just the next year I just wasn't happy after that. So every year I've improved the costume. The next year was really trial and error because I had to learn how to do all the FX makeup myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had help from people, but it's amazing how everybody holds to their secrets. They won't give you anything. Like I asked so many people, and I mean, I have friends that are celebrities and this and that. I say, hey, who the hell do I talk to do this makeup shit? And they were like, they would give me I'd get half truths and stuff, and so I started researching finally. And so, like the first year, my wife and I, we were at the point of killing each other before an event because she would help me do the makeup, and it's like, and so I'd have her do it, and it's like we would just, I mean, it would end up, it'd take hours to do it. Well, now
Right.
where I can get that shit done in like 20 minutes. I don't
Awesome.
and the costume's 10 times better. I always keep adding to it every year and make it a little better and crazier but the Grinch is fun. I you can't do anything wrong with as a Grinch. From doing burn offs through intersections to going and some of the venues I'd be at, like pizza places or whatever, and then I'd have as many as 1,000 people waiting in line for me to get pictures of me.
That's awesome. I
So
think that's yeah.
the one video I did that went viral, my son was videoing me. It was on the Grinch chopper I got. Because I have a couple bikes, and that one's kind of dedicated as just the mean one, the asshole bike.
Yeah.
And I just got it together because when I got it, it was kind of in pieces. I had to put all kinds of stuff together on it, fix things on it, and I got it just in time. It took me about 6 months to trial and error some of the pieces on this thing, and so I was going to one event, and my son was recording me, and he's kind of messing with me because that's just what kids do, and especially my boys. We have a really good relationship, and so I'm flipping him off as I'm on the bike, and that went viral. It's got like 7 million views or something, and
Yeah.
I have bros that are in other countries that send me and say, "Hey, we saw you over here as the Grinch. It's on our news." And I'm like, "What?" And they'd send me the link, and it was pretty funny. And so yeah, it's cool stuff. I mean, I think I'll always kind of do the Grinch. It's kind of my thing until
Mhm.
I don't know. But it's like I'll get kids that they would mess with me. They'd bring me onions, and of course I got to eat the onion because that's what the Grinch does. And
Yeah.
and then then I get the ones that say, you're not the Grinch. Grinch is strong, this and that. Little brat kids. I'll reach down and snatch them up by one leg and hold them upside down and shake them like this. And the parents are like, "Oh, let me get a picture," and the kids screaming and crying and all. Like, yeah, now what do you got? And it's like, and so yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's awesome. Well, we actually have some viewers. Yay.
Oh, good.
Anybody, I'll say this throughout the podcast. Anybody who's tuning in, type in the chat, say hi. If you have a question for Mike, put it in the chat. We can that'll extend the conversation.
Yeah.
But so besides you being the Grinch extraordinaire, uh, you're a martial artist. You're a Viking.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well,
How did that become part of your life? The
well,
martial art.
grandmother came over from Sweden
Yeah.
when she was like 9, and her maiden name is Bjornsson. And I have bros over there in Sweden that I've been friends with for quite some time, and they tracked down her name, and it goes back thousands of years over there. And and I've always, I mean, my whole life I've been a fighter. I was like, I always had that extra energy and whatnot. It's like my dad. My dad was a Vietnam vet, and he always seen that I had all this extra energy and this and that. And he got me into wrestling at age 6, and it's kind of funny. I think about the stuff my dad would always do to me as a kid, and even my uncle Philip. We'd always slap box and stuff. I'm just a little kid, and it's like all of a sudden I'd come up and out of nowhere, whack, he'd smack me in the face. Well, you should have seen that coming, and you know what I mean. So it's just always got me on my toes and this and that, and um, so yeah, I started out wrestling, and then started boxing. So um, one of my close childhood friends that's no longer with us anymore. It's kind of funny. I actually started getting into motorcycle riding and martial arts because of him. His dad was a Golden Ghost boxer, and another friend of mine's dad was the #1 contender in the world, who I met wrestling. But this guy, we were close at a young age, and so his dad used to teach us boxing, and every weekend there would be some boxing show on, and he would definitely be watching it. But what got me into the martial arts into things, when we were in like 4th grade, um, we were trick-or-treating, and I remember going down this dark stretch, and we had like, you go to Nordstrom's, you get this plastic bag that the clothes are in, the plastic handles and stuff. We had two of
Oh,
those full of candy, right? And we're walking. Well, a group of bullies come and grabbed our candy and ripped them right out of our hands and took off running. And I'm chasing after them, but I just couldn't catch them. And even though there was like 4 or 5 of them, I'm still running after them. And I had the handle still in my hands. And same with my buddy. They ripped the bowl off our can, took it all. And I thought after that, I was just so mad. I couldn't get over it. And so back then there was like, the only way everybody loved Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and all that stuff. And the only way you could watch that stuff is VHS or Beta rentals. Remember Beta?
oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I think we ended up wearing out we wore out Enter the Dragon and Revenge of the Ninja, I think like 3 times at the video place, just from stop, rewind, pause. How do you do that move? Stop, rewind, pause. And the video place just got so mad. But I bet we rented the same movies like 100 times, just trying to learn shit. Because, back then, that you're very limited on, at least where we live, or where you could go and train and or what you can do. And so, and I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money or this and that, like even wrestling, it was for like USA Club and stuff. I mean, they were, kid programs. So the only thing you had to pay for was your entry fee to the tournament or wrestling shoes. A lot of it's volunteer back then, right?
Right.
And so I ended up, so I ended up meeting, I ended up having school class with my my very close friend, one of my best friends, even to this day, is Travis Sue in 4th grade. Well, when we went, so my other buddy, we went to Warren School, and it was K through 3rd grade. Well, then when we went to 4th grade, it was a whole nother school. And so, and then the kids from that school came from a different town, because I lived in Warren, and they had to go to Scappoose. And so I met Travis Sue. Well, so Scappoose is 20 miles from Portland, and there was when we had the same class together, and there was this bully problem, like the big time, when we were in school. And it's like these 6th graders, there's a group of them, and they they would continue to pick on all the kids. They'd beat on them. There wasn't a lot of outside supervision back then, right? And
Right.
and so Travis and I kind of made a pact, and we stood together all the time, and we ended up just eventually like taking all those guys out, because we would team up on them and do what they were doing. And
Right.
well, so it came down to one of the biggest of the bullies. So he got Travis, and I jumped on that guy's back, and we just took this guy out. Well, I got swatted big time by the teacher. Like back then, you get swats, right? I got
Right.
swatted in 6th grade, and paddled, by not only by the teacher but also the principal. And I remember having to stay after school, and it was always because of fights, but we never started it. Never started any of them. It was always these boys, and my dad. So my dad, he always said, he had a pretty his integrity and honor and all that stuff was pretty great, and that's one thing I really appreciate. It got passed down to me. He always said you never start a fight, but you always stick up for your brother. You always stick up for your family, and you stand your ground for what you believe in. You know what I mean? He goes, if you do all that and you're ever in trouble, always have your back. He always say, I'll always be there for you, right? And so
Right.
I got swatted. I was after class. I remember crying and Travis hugging me. I mean, I'm only in the 4th grade, right? And he stayed after with me, and my dad showed up to pick me up, and I told him what happened. I said, well, it's these bullies, and this is what's going on, because I didn't tell my dad all the kids what they're doing. We kind of just, I just didn't want to say we were fighting, right?
Right.
And so I told him, and I said, we told the teacher, we said what they're doing, but nobody do anything. My dad, I'll never forget it. We're in the classroom, and he tells the teacher to step outside, and he wanted to talk to him. And there's windows all the way across there. My dad's outside, and Travis and I are just sitting there, and you can hear everything. My dad grabbed that teacher by the throat and picked him up against the wall, and he says, "You ever touch my boys again?" He says, "I stacked them in Vietnam. I will end you." He goes. I don't want to hear about it again. And that. I mean, that's when I knew, when what it meant to have somebody's back, or you always be there for, you know what I mean? Like, that's to this day, I can see it like yesterday. It was great.
Yeah.
Travis and I talk about it all the time. Well, Travis's dad was the #1 contender in the world boxer. So, his dad taught us a lot of boxing and things like that. You know what I mean? Growing up. And we continued to wrestle and stuff. And
Right on.
so my first true martial art lesson was a kung fu Parks and Rec. I think I was like 11. I want to say I was like in maybe fifth or sixth grade, and it was Parks and Rec, St. Helens, and anyways, it was out in the park. We were learning forms and dressed in the black kung fu outfits, and so I did it 2 years in a row. So the second year I was like 12, almost 13. So my teammate to this day and my close brother Marty May comes strolling by, and I didn't know who the hell he was, right? And
Yeah.
he's like 16, and he says something along the nature of, he goes, "What are you so and so's doing in those pajamas? You guys or your pussy's doing the pajamas or something. If you want to really learn how to fight, I'll teach you, you know, or something like that in that nature." And of course, I'm looking up because I'm little. I go, okay. I mean, I wanted to learn to fight. I hated the forms because it felt like I wasn't learning anything because I
Right.
didn't understand it back then. You know, I wanted to hit somebody or hit something, and so anyway, so I continued. So I dropped that Parks and Rec thing, and so I lived 4 miles from Marty, and so I used to ride my bicycle all the way to Marty lived in St. Helens, and I'd ride my bicycle and be his punching dummy in his mom's garage. And so, and I continued to do that, and we trained. We went everywhere together. I mean, we were like inseparable, really. And if there was, and then if there was any, whether it's the tournaments or whatever, there wasn't a lot of tournaments back then, or at least ones that we could afford to go to, because you know we weren't, you know, we didn't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
and so uh, we uh, we would go to whatever ones was around. It was like Chase tournament was around. Um, uh, Chip Wright had a tournament. I remember we'd go to one, and we'd go to Vancouver, BC, up Canada when we could. We tried hitting whatever ones that were around. I mean, when we were younger, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's that was kind of like my beginning, and to this day, me and Marty try to get together once a week and still, you know, spar and kind of beat the hell out of each other a little bit.
Right on.
Yeah, we had a long standing relationship. Yeah, so we would go if anybody could ever beat us or were to try and get more skill. We would go to whatever school. You got to remember there was no internet back there. The only thing that there was is magazines and or if you met somebody at a tournament.
Right.
You know, I mean, to try and research where things were was pretty. You know, kids today have it easy. I mean, they can find anything. Um, and so we would go if somebody was from a different school and they were good fighters. We would try and hook up with them and see if we can go to sparring. You know, at their school.
Okay.
And so we used to we would open spar at Aldecastas' school Fridays. We would spar in Ricky Cropper's basement. And at that time it was like Joe Fay, kickbox champion Joe Fay was in there. And I remember because Joe Fay wasn't very tall, but he'd jump up, throw spin hook kicks in his basement. The ceiling was only 7 foot tall. It was pretty funny. And but we would, I mean, that was our life. Like every weekend we were fighting or sparring somewhere.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
that's certainly a lot different from my upbringing. I mean, I got picked on when I was in grade school, got in a couple fights, wanted to get into martial arts, but my parents were like, "No, you're going to hurt yourself." And then my dad was like, "Oh, you can do judo," but I wanted to hit people. So I was like, no, I don't want judo.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, my mom wasn't all that much for it. Like, but my dad, of course, my dad loved hearing everything. He loved hearing all that stuff, you know.
yeah.
But kind of kept. It's kind of funny, you know. My dad and I were best friends. We always have been. It's like I could tell him anything, and good or bad. Like you know, one thing that he'd always say to me, he says, "It doesn't matter what it is. You always tell me the truth because, you know, we're only human." And he goes, but if you lie and I find out, then it's lesser I think of you, you know, or not necessarily less than I think of you, but you lose trust, you know. It's like, and so I've always just told him everything, and of course, you know, one thing I can appreciate Didn't matter all the screw ups I've made in life. He never once said I was stupid. He just would say, "Well, what are we going to do to fix that?
Yeah.
What decision are you going to make to fix that?" Never called me stupid. Never belittled me or any of that stuff. And I did a lot of stupid shit. So, but
Right
anyways,
on.
yeah.
So you
Uh,
do you have I don't know what number of knives you've put out for, regular people, celebrities, etc. But where'd you get the inspiration for that knife? How did that
well,
design
I've
come from?
loved knives and weapons, and honestly, my inspiration to it all is I owe it to Al Dacascos and Guru John Daniels. Um, well, if I didn't train with Al Dacascos, I never would have met Eric Lee. I never would have met John Daniels, and I never would have met Kakoi Kennedy, and you know what I mean, like people that I trained under. And um, the knife, if you never trained with a blade, if you've never played with it and understand every aspect of it, I mean, a blade's a dangerous thing. It's like a loaded gun. It's
Right.
not it's not when, it's how bad you get cut when you play with a knife. And I don't know a person that's never cut themselves playing with a knife. Um, and it's an extraordinary tool. So I always had um, uh, that desire to train with it, because I mean, you think about it, growing up, you see, old samurai movies, old guys, slicing with swords and this and that, and it, of course, a lot of that's fight choreography and everything else, but it's like they can see it happen before it happens because it's so good choreographed and this and that, and you just want, man, I want to just learn all these patterns and how to do that. And so, and of course, as I continued to train, there wasn't a lot of options for training blades back then. I think Century and Cold Steel made a rubber blade. I might have one around here. And there was always a lot of wood-handled ones or wood blades made. I've seen quite a few of those, over the last, 30-something years. And so I wanted to make something that was, more resembled a true knife. And so
Right.
my first one I made is actually, this is the only one I have left, but this is the very first aluminum one I made. And it's kind of based off the principles of an old Spyderco,
Okay.
a clip it. And so it's funny, because I trained with John Daniels for a long time. He is a full instructor at Danny Inosanto, which is Bruce Lee's #1 student. Well, so anytime, Dan Inosanto would come, or if we hosted or whatever, a seminar, of course, I'd be there. I mean, I've been to probably, maybe 30 of his seminars or more. I mean, I don't know. And so I gave Danny Inosanto one of these blades, right? I
Yeah.
gave him, I made him, and that was at least 30 years ago. And so when I saw him again, he was with Professor Trigg, and I gave him the new version one, right?
Right.
And he says, "Wait a minute." And he pulled out of his bag the one I gave him 30 years ago. It's still within his bags, and he takes it everywhere with him. And I thought
Wow.
that was pretty awesome. I go, "You're the only one that I know, the other one that has one, because this is the only one I have." And I don't know who still has them or who doesn't. And so I thought that was pretty cool that he still had, and he still uses that same blade that I gave him, close to 30 years ago or whatever it was. And yeah, so that's really, so my inspiration to this trainer and this knife, this is the real one, is I wanted a blade So I spent 2 years on this design. I probably could have got it done sooner, but then as I was working on it, my dad got cancer, and I focused all my attention on him, and so
Hmm.
it stopped my um, it stopped my attention to it for a while. And which
Right.
sad, I wish I would have actually was able to finish the end product, so my dad could have saw the finished product when it was done on this design, and understand, like, so I have a student that does all the metallurgy and stuff. I don't have a, a place to, you know, um, melt the metal and pound it and do all that stuff. This is my design, and
Right.
I when I get him, when he's done, I polish him, sharpen him, and clean him up and stuff. So that's my, and then I put the whole package together. You so the way I designed this and why I did is, if you look at it the way the handle is now, I feel that no blade, no handle should be in a straight plane with the blade. And because these three fingers, that's your quick, this is like the strength, and this is considered the weak link. But everything you do, whether you're gripping, manipulating, you're utilizing these fingers, right?
Right.
And so if the blade's curvature goes inward, then it takes very little. So if you consider Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch, right? And
Hmm.
so if you see here, it's a wrist motion, right? You understand? Or a
Yeah.
wrist motion, right? So this quick motion with the blade's curvature, so it's not straight here for the blade, it has an arc to it, because this is the main slicing aspect of the blade, right?
Right.
So if I have the handle inward, then my little motion here, it exponentially travels that slice that much further, right? With very little movement, because of the curvature of the blade, right? So, and I also made it to where the punya, the end of it's sticking out, so you can hammer with it, hammer,
Hmm.
whatever. And then the indention here, because if you ever watch, if you stab into something, anybody stabs hard, their hand, if this is the same plane as the blade, their hand can slide off and cut themselves.
Yep. I've been there.
Yeah, so this stops it. Also, I designed, and then this is the pinching aspect. See the back?
Right.
It works as a pincher too. And then, of course, the thickness of the shank is, so I've stabbed it right through a car hood, right? And I wanted something that worked both fencing or cooking position, what you might want to call,
Yeah.
or ice pick or killing position. So it wields itself good this direction. You see the grip there.
Hmm.
So when I'm stabbing down, and then this is smooth for the thumb, for just if you want the thumb behind it, and or if you're cutting out, you know what I mean? Like, it's, I spent a long time with it, and I tested it. I have a video where I'm slicing through wood, just chopping the shit out of it, hitting it as hard as I can, and stabbing through and cutting through a can, and I threw it and stuck it in a log. I've skinned three deer with it, with this blade, matter of fact.
That's cool.
So, you know, um, it's not the strongest metal, Damascus or whatever, but it works. I mean, it holds a pretty good edge, and I like the Damascus look, because I'm Viking, and it just looks like it just speaks Viking, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I mean, that's kind of the principles behind the design. Um, yeah, there's a lot of, I call them brothers of the blade out there.
Yeah.
I have yet to have anybody that doesn't like it. Like, everybody sends me pictures, like, constantly. Well, hey, I'm camping and I'm chopping some wood with it, or I'm doing this. I mean, I got them all, and I just kind of added to that group.
Right on.
This
So didn't mean to interrupt you there.
no,
And of course, my thought just pops out. I mean, it's good that it's a knife. Knives are designed to be used.
yeah.
So it's good that people are using it.
There's two things in this world that get passed down from generation to generation, and people don't generally lose: guns and knives. And so, my principle behind not just making this, but also the presentation. So, when I designed this, you'll see the whole presentation box. There's a nameplate on there that is the soul of the blade. I feel every blade has a soul, or the person's soul is in the blade. Well, so that's the representation of the blade. And because I want there to be a story with this. And
Mhm.
so when somebody gets one of these, they'll get a challenge coin or keychain, a patch, two different sheaths. So the sheath is another great design, and nobody else has one of these. This is leather the way I did it. So if you see, the handle's face down, right?
Right.
Well, most of the time people have it, the handle's up, or it's on their back, or something like this. Well, being that I'm a biker and I have gloves on, I tried coming up with how can I utilize this blade like a gunslinger, like a old west, Billy the Kid. So I designed it to where the way it is, it's very, I don't know if you can see there, it's very quick. Like all it is a snap, and
Mhm.
and I could have gloves on, it doesn't matter. And so, and I call that the Soul Keeper sheath
Okay.
because it's the keeper, of the blade, right? Um, and so, anyway, so that's my madness to my design.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think the sheath, you showed it off, I think, what was it, last year we had you on for little Bram's little blade, online blade show.
Oh
When
yeah, yeah.
you're showing, yeah, I think that's just a really innovative design to a sheath.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if it's unsnaps, I mean, so I have a magnet strip in there because of it being the carbon, the levels of the Damascus. Then it drags like because the magnet kind of holds a little bit, so it's kind of like a secondary safety.
okay.
So the blade just doesn't fall out and hit the ground.
Right.
But I mean, I try to keep working on new aspects to make it to where there isn't that. But it's like, here's the deal: to make something be excessive within a split second, you can't have all these safeties either, though. So you just got to be aware of what you're doing. I mean, that's what I tell people. I mean, it is what it is. It's like
Yeah.
you don't have time to unsnap this, unhook that, and then all of a sudden, okay, now I can get it out. It's like I want it to where if I need it, it's there within a split second, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Right on. So, what number? That was a question I was going to ask earlier. What number are you on? I saw that one. I think it said what, 48.
Oh, this one. What is this
Yeah,
one?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 48.
Yeah, which
People,
one are you on now?
I think 93 or 94.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
look, I gotta see. And so I got I got a wall here of celebrities that all have my blade. I got to put Kung Lee's up there. I made I had made like four special blades for
Hmm.
his upcoming film because he wanted something that was different and unique, and and so I made these. They're about a 2 inch longer blade,
Okay.
same handle design, and they have on the leather lanyard silver crosses that are handmade and put on there. Um, and so his film, I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about the film much, but it's going to be a religious type based film. It's not like PG-13, but it's that, like, in that aspect. That's all I could say. So
Yeah.
he's going to be a carrier of one of the blades and whatnot, and so yeah, I mean, I made one for Sly Stallone, Chuck Zito, Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, Ron Starr, Brett Wagner, Frank Stallone, and Mark Dacascos. Um, yeah, I mean, Al Dacascos has one. I made one for him as a gift couple years ago, or was it a year ago? Maybe no, it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's a good looking blade. Eventually I'm going to get my hands on one. I uh just haven't gotten there yet. So,
yeah. You know, it's like, like I tell everybody. I mean, there's it's not the best blade out there, and I never once said it is. I just really love how it feels,
mhm.
works, the design of it. It's unique. There's not another design out there that's even close to it. You
Well,
cannot.
and I kind of look at it like knives are, like you had mentioned, knives are like handguns.
Yeah,
But when it comes to, when I didn't own a gun until I first got into security.
yeah,
And so, somebody was like, okay, well, we're going to have our qualifications on this day. Go out and get yourself a pistol. And so I had been looking online and, and somebody's like, well, stop looking online. Just go into the store, start handling them because, you always get, it's like, oh, okay, well, a Beretta 92, that's like, that's great. And I was thinking, oh, I'll get that one. That's a, nice gun. It looks pretty, it's the same one that they use in movies, military uses it. And then I put my hands on it and it's a cannon. And I'm like, just the grip is just was way too big for me.
yeah,
So it's like, it's finding that right, the, does it feel good in your hands?
yeah.
Do you like how it moves? That's all that really matters because you're going to be the one using it in real.
Well, and that's the other thing. So I have hundreds of blades. I mean, I got hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing I worked on when designing this. Now look at the thickness and how the handle is. It's like
Yeah.
putting a roll of quarters in your hand. Well, I don't know if you've ever put a roll of dimes or a roll of nickels or any, something of
Yeah.
roundness and weight in your hand and hit something. It holds your fist tight.
Yeah.
And so, say you're holding this in ice pick or kill position and you're punching, well, you're not going to hurt your hand. Like, unless you hit, a brick wall. But even if you hit somebody's skull, your hand is all protected because of the thickness. Now, I have lots of blades, and the handle's really thin here, and it goes to an abrupt edges on the sides, and it's kind of hurts your hand. So, like, I'll grab an experiment, and I'll just like hit, like a chunk of wood or something, just kind of see how does that feel in my hand.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
And so I'll do that. Like, I play with all my knives. Like, I'll hit something. I'll hit something hard with it. I'll stab at stuff. I'll just feel how it feels in my hand. And that was the other reason behind designing this the way I did, because, I mean, if you notice that it has a slight, just a nice round curvature where everything fits, because your palm is indented. It needs that little bit of a hump. It needs that to hold the bone structure. Does that,
Right. Yeah,
and
it's a great I mean, it's like that, and that's why I like Bram Frank's knives because it's got this great ergonomic design.
right.
That your knife has that same similar ergonomic design.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. The making things anatomically correct to where it flows with what's already working. That's that's the thought behind it.
Yeah.
And it's like, uh, and I have just tons of people, like I know so many people that use my trainer because it's basically the same, design.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can hit with the punya. It has that slicing aspect, and also has the hilt on the bottom here to protect, so you can stab against. Um, and those, and I also have a Kynex sheath that I use for those, so it has the same quick draw with the handle face down, the same quick draw attributes that I have a buddy who makes all my Kynex sheaths, chat over east.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's the madness behind it.
Right on. So before we went on, you were showing me your kind of your little. Are you in your training room right now? Is that where that is?
This is where the blood, sweat, and tears happen in this part of the house. So I have a wrestle mat, and I got my buddies here. I got that Bob, or that one's Robert Suttles, and
Okay.
then that one's Tim Gustafson.
Okay.
I give them different names because that way when I'm doing a video, I can send them the video and say I was thinking of them.
Oh, there you go.
And I have some boxing memorabilia up there. You can see Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao. I got Ray Mercer. I got my boxing instructor, Richard Sweet Sue. And then Ernie Shavers, where he smacking Muhammad Ali there. And then there's a bunch of the celebrity blade guys I framed.
Okay.
Pictures and stuff. But yeah, this is my training room. Figured I'd just hook up. I just moved the Grinch chair over here, so I had a place to sit when I'm talking to you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The your most recent so your the one over your right shoulder.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about that. Why don't we talk about that?
Oh yeah, so that's the berserker. Basically that's my weapon side of my art. So that's my Viking symbol, crest, everything. Um, I drew my original. So this one, I drew the original martial arts. That's my Mather Academy symbol. That always represents my martial arts symbol there.
Yeah.
And I drew it 90, 94 or something like that. And I used to draw pretty good, and so I was trying to come up with something that kind of represented the Viking side, my Viking blood, the Viking side of my family. And God, I just got so frustrated. So I had my tattoo bros draw it for me, and I just gave them all the ideas. I told them, I want some battle axes, I want some axes on there, I want a sword, I want a skull, I want it just to be badass. And then so like this symbol is the berserker symbol.
Okay.
They were like the craziest of Vikings, berserker, right? So that's my berserker diamond, and then to have the battle axes and stuff. So a goose did that for me, and he did a great job. He drew it up, and I'm like, that's the rest is history. So I've had it for a while now, and I kind of add that to all my knife stuff, all my. Since I'm Swedish, the knife, like in the sole of the knife, I got it translated where it's in English and in Swedish. So when you open up the box, the whole sole of the blade, it says the sole of the blade in Swedish and in English. And the name of my blades is called DojoChat, which means death strike.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to try and work on a design of an AR that goes with the knife. Also a war hatchet. It still will have the name DojoChat because it ultimately just means death strike. But they will be numbered in unison. So of course, if somebody, so I'm going to try and work with one of my buddies who's a level 7 that builds guns and stuff, and we're going to talk. We've been kind of talking about making a gun that can go with the blade, kind of deal.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Like weapons are great, and I've been kind of working on a war hatchet. And actually, so this is another thing. I had this made for me. This is my belt knife. I had this made for me. I'm not stripping down, so don't get nervous. I had this made for me in Switzerland.
Oh, sweet.
This was made for me 14 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And I drew it up and I said this is kind of what I wanted and whatnot. So I've been redesigning this in a dress belt system. So that will be another thing that will pop up one of these days. Like I said, I just kind of, I can play with things and work on it until I'm happy, and then, have something made up.
No, that's awesome. Now,
so the meaning behind. Remember you were asking the meaning behind it. So
yeah.
Terry Faircloth, actually, he painted these for me. I'll give him a heads up. He's a professor in the, Kaji Kempo and stuff, and he so graciously painted those for me. So this one is a leopard is killing a two-headed dragon. Now, the original drawing I drew was a winged two-headed dragon, and it's actually tattooed on my back.
Okay.
But it started complicating things. The wings were way out here and this and that, and so I slowly simplified the drawing. Now, my meaning behind the drawing or that is, a two-headed dragon. So a dragon is like, the representation of a dragon, even though it's fictional, it's fierce, it's, fearless, deadly, like unstoppable. Well, the leopard is just timid and looks, docile and not really ferocious looking. If anything, it looks like something you want to go up and pet, right? Well,
right.
So the idea behind me drawing this, I wanted something that really could kind of represent, hey, don't judge a book by its cover. Anybody can be taken out. Like, just because somebody's big or muscular or thinks they're badass or this and that doesn't mean they can't be taken out. And so the leopard's actually diving through the center and ripping its heart out of the two-headed dragon. It's killing the two-headed dragon.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my principles behind it. And of course, my colors are red and black with a touch of white. Well, the whole, colors should have a meaning too. And of course, it's brothers prepare for war with purification by pain. Well, so black is war or death. Red is blood, and white is pure, right? So those are the representation of my colors, and they've been my colors since forever.
Right on. So now, did you? I mean, of course, you've taught. Did you actually have a school?
Yeah,
like a brick and mortar?
I taught for a long time. I had a school in Warrenton in 90. Opened that. I had the U.S. Bank building in 93, and I taught in that building 93 until 2005 when I broke my back.
Okay.
So I've taught thousands of students, and I was actually one of the first instructors to teach in a public school. I taught at Jewel School K through 12 for 3 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and matter of fact, they had me. I didn't have a teaching degree. They had me a few times sub for the health teacher and the PE teacher. Like if they were sick, they say, "Hey, Mike, for class." Yeah, I'll cover it. Yeah. And great about that. And I still have a lot of those students this day that were kids then that message me on Facebook and this and that, and just they have great love for me. And so I would walk the halls with a padded stick, and if kids got online, I'd whack them with it. As a matter of fact, I might have one of the padded sticks right here. Let's see. Yeah, look at that.
Oh, there you go.
This was the Action Flex.
Yeah.
So I would, if they would get out of line, I'd smack them. Give me 20 push-ups right now. I don't want to hear nothing. And they'd drop down and do it.
Yeah.
And all the kids just loved and respect me. I'll tell you what's funny is, so the principal at that time, he was what do I want to say, embezzling the money from Jewel's school or something. He was the principal. He hated me because the kids all loved me from every age group, because I would, there's nothing I would make them do that I wouldn't do, right? And I
Right.
did that when I treat them with respect, and they all just wanted to do the best for me. And so, he did everything he could. Well, he finally got the school board to do away with my funding. And so that's how I got out of there. Well, the next year he got caught for embezzling the money and doing all the stuff. They fired him and all that kind of shit.
Wow.
Because the school lost me because of him. And I mean, I'd probably still be teaching there to this day because it was a great little school community.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was fun times. But yeah, I didn't know anybody else that had a contract with the school district back when I did. Then you never even heard of somebody teaching in a school of martial arts. And I was teaching K through 12.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that was a good time. So then I reopened I broke my back in 05. I've always done construction. I've been doing construction, forever. And I was building a deck on the second story, and the ladder collapsed. I fell, landed on a cement pier block, broke my back in 5 places.
Oh, wow.
So I was pretty much in bed for a year, and bless my wife to this day that's with me now. She was by my side. She only knew me for a couple months, but I
really?
had to shut my school down. I lost everything. As a matter of fact, she was right there, and she moved and just so she could take care of me and this and that, and it's like wipe my ass, you want to say, pretty much. And we're been best friends ever since, still to this day. And but I still have a lot of pain from that because I broke my L2, 3, 4, the transverse process broke, and my L5 one was a compression fracture. And so I have my right leg has been numb since 05. Like, I mean, I have serious back spasms, and so a lot of times, flying, and I can't sit for long periods of time. I have to stand up, move around. It just really bugs me, and so I I've just lived with it. It's constant pain, and so they found there's a bone spur that's going through the nerve. Well, it was kind of a screwed up deal. The person I was working for, they fought my attorney was in coots with their attorney. They fought everything. It was all workers' comp should have covered it, but it was like a $46,000 surgery, and they could have went in and just cut the bone spur off. And it's like, I money. I already lost everything. Well, they wouldn't cover any of the expense of that, and my attorney was in cahoots with theirs. It's a long story, but the bottom line is, it's like I kind of gave up on it all, and so I couldn't. The hardest part about the recovery aspect of it, because I couldn't go to physical therapy, and I didn't know enough about. I should have just got a different attorney and went through that route, but I just didn't. I was always a doer, not a taker. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to get through this. And so the hardest part with the recovery end was like everything I knew how to work out, I couldn't do. And so I started one of my close friends, Anthony, gave me his mountain bike because I couldn't run because the jarring just killed my back. And so I started riding a mountain bike, so because I can control the bumping, the jar.
Yeah.
And so doing that, and I got to where I could do almost 20 miles, over time, and of course, um, uh, my dad looked at me too before that, and he just like, because I was getting to a depressed state in my life, and I never been a depressed person, and he just looked at me and says, "Tony, have you ever given up on anything? You're going to be a pussy and let life get the best of you?" And I'm like, well, since you say it that way, I mean, no. So that's kind of how all the I started just riding the mountain bike, and eventually got to where I can um, start running again and whatnot. And so my next time I competed, I was in 2010. So from '05 to 2010, I didn't compete in anything. I was just trying to rebuild myself back up.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't quite fly through the air like I used to. I can still throw some pretty mean kicks and this and that. And every once in a while, I'll do a video or whatever. But I just had my 49th birthday in March, and it's like, man, I'm starting to feel some of these old injuries, but I refuse to let these young punks outdo me.
Right. Well, no, I feel you. I mean, my wife is 49 today. Actually, I'm sorry, she's 20. She's 25.
Yeah.
For,
Okay.
for the record.
Right.
And I'll be 49 in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Very
So, I mean, we're all getting up there.
sure.
But when it comes to, you've done a lot of competitions, but you've also bounced, and I'm sure you've, been in your fair share of real stuff.
Oh yeah.
When was uh were you ever at that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to throw out part of my curriculum because it doesn't really work. It's more sport than real.
So, I made the decision. Let's see. When I drew this symbol,
Yeah.
I redid my curriculum because, see, I spent my whole life boxing, wrestling, involved in things that were outside of uh, uh, prearranged sports fighting.
Right.
Cause so I've always kind of lived on the dark side of things, if you will, and so I realized that I had to make up my own curriculum for Mather Academy, and I presented that curriculum to Al Dacascos, Eric Lee seen it, Sid Campbell, a lot of the guys that have been my mentors in life, and they're kind of like, they looked at me and like, well, what do you need our approval for? You've already proven your path in life. And I'm like, no, I just want your blessing that you like what. And so
Right.
like a lot of the forms that I would teach in my curriculum were the Taekwondo forms, since the Taekwondo was my first black belt. Um, and it's kind of funny. We kind of learned the Taekwondo and karate both as we were going because of Marty's instructor in the beginning, and then we would take bits and pieces of other arts that weren't even Taekwondo at all, just because they worked in competition or in street. But so I changed. So there's four ranges. Well, there's five, but there's four ranges in martial, in fighting. There's kicking, boxing, trapping, and grappling.
Okay.
So when I redid my curriculum, I made it to where all those ranges were covered in each belt level. So um, there, I added the wrestling, I added the jiu-jitsu, I added the boxing, I added the FMA, the Filipino martial arts side of things. There's the Taekwondo side, there's the karate side, there's all the One Hap Kundo, there's all this stuff, the Muay Thai, the elbow strikes, everything is in my curriculum, like bits and pieces to make what I feel is, was the best attributes for each belt level. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, because there was a lot of, I love all the systems. I've never been a person, I will never put down any system. I don't really feel anybody has a right to put down a system unless they have actually done it. And because I think a person training in anything is better than not training at all. And so
that's a good point. I mean, I have a tendency, I'll admit, I believe the same thing, but I tend to put down Taekwondo all the time, but that's just me.
And the thing I tell you right now, like Taekwondo, like I can kick like a mule.
Yeah.
Where do you think I got it from? It was Taekwondo base. I mean, I
And
learned how to do the spin hook kicks, the jump side kicks. I mean, I've shoved my heel through somebody's spine. Why? Because I learned that art. Now, here's the thing: like all the arts. Why I have respect for all the arts is because they all have their place.
mhm.
And you can utilize the different aspects and keep. So I would never change how I learned what I've learned.
Right.
I mean, hey, I've road tested it. Like I've been in situations, the most people I took on at one time was 12. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, I've road tested the stuff. I don't have any doubt in what my capabilities. I don't think I'm the toughest guy in the world, but I'll damn well not. I won't sit down for nobody.
Right.
But at the same time, uh, you know, it's like I guys will go to an MMA school. They wrap their wrists and they hit a bag, right?
Right.
Everything we grew up doing was traditional. So I mean, I can go out and hit a brick wall, and it's not going to hurt my hand. You know what I mean? Like, so, the things that I learned, how to hit, how to break, how to kick, were with power. Like, and so then when I started doing the FMA and one Hap Kuen Do with Al, I learned fluidity, the kung fu aspect of things, right? So it's like combining the soft with the hard system. So
Right.
you can learn how to flow around somebody and then hit them with power. That's deadly. It's like whipping a towel. It's like the dragon whips its tail, right?
Yeah.
So, that's why you can't really put down any arts. It's like they all have their place. I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu under JT Taylor. I trained with him because I felt I wanted to be able to defend. I mean, because I wrestled my whole life. I did collegiate, Greco-Roman, freestyle wrestling. Wrestled year round, loved it all, and I love wrestling. And you can't justifiably put anything down if you haven't trained in it. Well, I looked at jiu-jitsu in the early stage of my life and thinking, wow, these guys go to their back, and this and that. I go, I'd never do that on the street, like, because he'd get curb stomped by his buddy. Like,
Right.
you go to the ground with anybody, you better have them. You better use their head for the ground and not you. Like, I mean, and so I wanted to learn the jiu-jitsu so I can defend against somebody who trained in jiu-jitsu, so I could put their ass to the ground, pick them up and bounce their head like a basketball on the pavement,
Right.
or against whatever locks or, whatnot they had. So, anyways, I think every art has its place. You'll never hear me talk bad about any art. I think if anybody gets a black belt in anything, they deserve 100% my respect, because that's time and dedication. Like, it really doesn't matter if you agree with their style or what they do. They spent time and dedication to perfect to the best of their ability what they're training in, and so it all deserves respect.
I think my experience in Taekwondo, at least, was I'm not a competitive person when it comes to sport. I'm more of a competitive person when it comes to, keeping my ass in one piece.
Sure.
So, and going through the Taekwondo program I went through, it was just competition, competition, competition.
Sure.
And so, and that was, and then of course, going into the real world, to me, it didn't mesh. So I
Well,
think that's kind of where I come from. I don't really talk crap about them, but it's just like, a friend of mine, I had mentioned this in a podcast with Harvey Hundit, where it was, he had started, I think he got like his 5th degree in Taekwondo. His parents taught Taekwondo,
sure.
but I had said, everybody has to go to kindergarten.
Well,
And
here's the thing. To road test anything, you need to compete. I mean, how can
yeah,
you understand timing if you this is why I competed in everything. I competed
okay,
I would try and back when we were competing, it was sport karate events and this and that, so they had continuous fighting, they had points fighting, they had full contact UST or WTF, they had sand shoe, they had stick fighting and stuff. So I tried competing.
mm-hmm.
I go to the tournament, I try and compete in everything I could, because how can you perfect your timing? And this is what I like about like even points fighting. What I loved about points fighting, if you look at the other guy and his hands are knives, his feet are knives, and
Okay,
vice versa. If I can touch you before you touch me, then who's quicker? So the thing that points fighting really had taught me is the springs of life. So your calves, being on your toes, moving in and out, being in there first and back out, and ready to fire again. You could get into the fire pit and then continue taking them out, but you can't really learn that anywhere else. And except going against other people for other arts and this and that, but it's all the same rules, right? But
mm-hmm.
so you don't know, like not everybody throws a kick and a punch the same way.
Right,
And then of course, I always like being in the dark side of things, um, outside of prearranged or tournaments and this and that, just because of where I'd hang out and what I do. I mean, I've been a biker my whole life for the most part, so sometimes you're just in an area where stuff happens, and
yeah,
and so um, I just feel competition's important. It's like to me, an instructor teaching self-defense. How can you justifiably teach self-defense if you've never been in a street fight? It's like if you've never had to
that's
look
an excellent point.
if you've never had to look death in the eyes, how do you know how you're going to react to it? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
your fight or flight. Here's the thing. It's like when somebody is looking at you and they want to kill you. Well, first of all, it's usually not going to be one person. It's usually more than one. I can say on all the street fights that I've been in, maybe I've actually fought one against. It was like one-on-one a few times. It was
right,
always me against two or more, and and you when somebody's willing to hurt you, you don't know what the extent of that is. And so, like, I'll watch these guys teach these self-defense moves, and I just kind of laugh, because I think that's not going to fucking work. Because
yeah,
first of all, nobody's going to stand there and keep their hand out there while you do this move, or it's like I always told my students, you're always 45 to your opponent. You're always trying to quarter him and move him in whatever move you're doing. Turn him to where he's going to face his buddy, and you're always got your back to something that you trust, whether it's a wall or whatever, because that's the reality of life. Like, nobody is going to most people aren't going to try and approach me or this and that unless they're trying to prove something to a buddy, and that's how it is.
right,
And so you go to the ground with somebody or this and that, well, his buddy's going to curb stomp your melon. You're going to football kick you in the face.
yeah,
So anyways, those are it's kind of like my 2 cents on competition and arts. Like, I think it's all very important. It's like you need to compete, because the reason like just sparring with your own teammate, it isn't
Mhm.
enough because you start learning what each other does, and eventually there's kind of a mutual respect there, and he's not really trying to hurt you anyways. But
I can
unless
see that.
like one of my friends or one of my teammates, we kind of enjoyed hurting each other a little bit. But anyway, well, one of my, Tim, but my teammate Tim, we have kind of a sick love hate relationship for each other because I think we kind of enjoy, inflicting a little bit of pain, but nothing was ever intentional, but shit happens, and
Right.
but the competition, then that you're getting that stress from another person at full force for the most part. So it only perfects your own skill capabilities. I don't care what it is in. If it is points fighting or USTU or MMA in the cage or whatever. I mean, that's why competition's important.
Okay. And that's I so because I don't have I've never really had a problem with sparring because yes, you're right. It teaches timing.
Yeah,
I do like your point on, when, if you're always sparring the same person, then you build that mutual respect and you get to know that other person, and competition really, you get to go and fight other people under the same rules.
yeah. I
And like
mean,
nobody punches the same, nobody kicks the same. And so, it challenges your style. But
yeah.
I don't know, early on that just wasn't, it was just so beat into me that it was just like, nah,
Well, Mitch, I think it also has to do with your environment or your instructor too, for the most
yeah,
part. I mean, if your instructor, like you got to remember, my first instructor was my teammate Marty May. Like, you know, are you kidding? We both grew up. We were hellions growing up as kids.
right.
We loved to compete. Like we fed off each other, and so I I constantly, me, Marty, Mike Berthotti, and Tim and John Fox. It's like I have such great relations still to this day. Terry Keel and Rick Cropper, and I mean, uh, we had such a great thing. Like we spent, um, I want to say probably a good 13 years. We used to spend our Sundays, and all the toughest fighters in the West Coast would try and meet at Ricky Cropper's school on Sundays. That was our Sunday ritual, and we
Mhm.
we would spar for probably 5 hours or longer. And I mean, that was probably the most educational time. I mean, and we would go at it. Like, I mean, there was never a time where there wasn't blood on the ground.
Yeah.
Um, Not that it was what the goal was. It just we were trying to perfect our own skill sets, and so there would be as many as 10 to 15 of us that would all meet from everywhere. We would invite people from California, Canada would come down, drive down just to spar, and I mean we would have all kinds of fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Oh. Um, I don't know. I got nothing else.
You got nothing?
I got nothing. Do you got another story? I mean, we're at the 73-minute mark, so we could end at any time.
Yeah.
But this has been good. I mean, I in fact I actually think um I was a Dillman associate for, I don't know, a decade. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing your school listed,
Yeah.
and I remember reaching out, either you were hosting him or I was attempting to host, or maybe I was trying to host Jack Hogan. And I remember we had a couple emails back and forth. And so, in the last couple of years when your name started coming up with Bram, I was like, wait a minute, I know that name. So,
We used to. So Mark Gary and I mean, we used to go to Dillman's at the Muhammad Ali training camp like 3 times a year. Like, I mean, we did that for quite a few years.
oh, really?
Yeah, and they're in Deer Lake
Yeah.
and Pennsylvania. And so, what I really respected about the whole aspect of Dillman is, before I started training under him, I looked at a heavy bag or a bob as a place I would just hit the face. I didn't pinpoint where I was actually hitting.
Right.
And I never understood those aspects of it because really I never had any instructor explain the pressure point aspects to me until I started training with him. Well, then that brought everything alive. That's when I started learning a lot of Wally J, small circle jiu-jitsu manipulations. I started learning some of Remy Presses and Dillman trained together, so I learned a lot of his moves from associates under Dillman because they trained with Remy back then.
Mm-hmm.
I actually met a lot of great guys um, from George Dillman. And so it's only when he started doing the no touch uh, knockout stuff that I thought, I don't really need to go there. And that's when I quit. And
Right.
disrespect to him, I got what I needed out of what he offered at the time, and it really pinpointed and perfected my attacks, my strikes, my manipulations, everything, because learning the acupuncture points and the pressure points is just a great attribute to your martial arts. That's it.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. I never made it out to Deer Lake. I wanted to, but of course, lack
every
of money.
oh
It always came down to that.
yeah, I mean, fuck, I'd spend fucking 4,000 a year just traveling over there.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't regret any of it. It was great. Like, I mean, the training was phenomenal, and it wasn't so much just the training from him. It was the other instructors that I met over there, like Mark Klein, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Pidichelli. Um, uh, I got a lot of good bros from that time. Ed Lake, um, uh, Leo Fong, Leo Fong is a great boxer. Like
Yeah.
Leo Fong used to. I got videos, VHS videos, training videos, boxing that he sent me personally that he made up that are awesome.
Right
Uh,
on.
yeah. So.
Yeah. I just met Anthony a couple weekends ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He drove, Klein picked him up in New York and they drove out to Indiana to Jim Corn's.
Oh yeah.
And,
But
um,
I.
and it was, and Mark's like, okay, he's like, just prepare yourself. This is kind of how Anthony is. And I was like, okay. And Anthony's a great guy.
Oh no.
He's, but, it was, I think, quintessential New Yorker. Like when you think of that stereotypical,
Oh, he's
you
told.
know,
He's told.
like not, I wouldn't say obnoxious, but just loud, knows everybody, um, just kind of a little bit eccentric. That's Anthony, and I love it. I was just like, okay, this guy's different, but he's cool at the same time.
Definitely of the. I want to say. Uh, Without really maybe mobster type mentality. I just love him. He's fucking.
Yeah,
Yeah, him and
yeah,
I are close.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
cool. Yeah, no, I just met him. So, but he's a cool guy. And then of course I've known Klein for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
Actually,
known.
the first time I met Mark the first time in Houston. I went down there for a big 3 seminar, and I had tried to keep my hair short because I didn't like getting my hair pulled.
Oh yeah,
And
and
so we were doing this one hair technique.
Mark likes attacking your little pinky too.
Yeah.
Did he attack?
And
Did he attack your pinky?
yeah. And so he's trying to do this, and he's like, no. He comes up and he just runs his hair, his fingers through the back of my hair and clenches up, and I'm just like, ah.
Oh, yeah.
So my hair got shorter, but
yeah, I definitely don't have to worry about the hair attributes.
yeah.
Haven't had hair in 29 years.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I was in style before it was in style.
Before it was cool.
Before it was cool to be bald.
All right.
Well, I can always come on again if you want to talk about some other shit. And,
oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Anyways, I gotta get to doing some stuff and whatnot, but
yeah. Well, like I said, it's also my wife's birthday, so I should probably get off here. And my cat is whining. I've heard him in the background jumping up on the table, and he's not there. He is. He's just jumping up there. So,
all right, Mish.
All right, man. Well, Mike, it has been an honor to talk to you today. In fact, this is the longest time we've actually talked. It's been great to get to know you, and anybody who tunes in live or has been watches this after it's recorded, some good conversation.
Okay.
So
kind of good, and take care, bro. And I'll see you either. I'll surprise visit at Bram's birthday or something.
Oh yeah. Well, hold on for just a second. I'm gonna I gotta promote the chat. So if you guys have hung out this long and still have not subscribed or liked or shared or done that, go on there. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, got a website. So if you want to be on the show, send in your info. If you want to promote the show or sponsor the show, you can do that too. So that's always good. And then next week, I'm going to be on with Steve Perry, and I'm going to make this big. So Steve Perry, he's a writer, martial artist, favorite author, lives down in, he lives over in the Beaverton, Portland area, but he's going to be joining me. We're going to talk some Matador stuff. I don't know if if you're an avid reader, but Steve wrote these awesome martial arts bodyguard type of Matador novels, science fiction. So I don't know. I picked one up when I can't remember. Maybe it was a senior in high school, and I just fell in love with it. And it's got a whole series. So, but all right. Well, Mike, thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video. Remember, train hard.